to Angela's bell.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Great.
Hello.
Awesome. Well, I want to welcome my panel. I want to welcome anybody who is viewing us on YouTube or may view us later. You can see this later. Welcome. This morning I have gathered with the NCEA and Catholic educators across the country to talk a little bit about 21st century learning, 21st century education, and the impact it is having on Catholic education in our country. So to start, I'd like to ask Patrick Lofton, who's the Vice President of the NCEA, to introduce himself and talk a little bit about the role of NCEA and 21st century education. I want to welcome my panel. I want to welcome everybody.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be with all of you this afternoon. As Ken said, I am the Executive Vice President of NCEA, and as such, I function as the Chief Operating Officer for the association. And I came on board about a year and a half ago, and to be very frank, it became very apparent that NCEA needed to become more current, more relevant, and more in touch with educators across this country, particularly teachers. And so we began a process about a year and a half ago of a self-study that has led to a process of significant organizational change for NCEA as we begin this new year. Our focus, as some of you may know, as we look to the future, is going to be solely focused on Catholic schools, with an emphasis on leadership development, professional development of teachers, as well as marketing communications and how we can promote our schools more effectively. A key piece to this, though, is how do we create schools that students thrive in, and that, quite frankly, all students find a way to find success. And one of the ways that we do that is through 21st century learning. NCEA, over the last few years, has begun to do new types of professional learning. Last year we hosted a very successful STREAM conference at the University of Dayton. This summer we're going to be doing a blended learning conference. But NCEA is very excited about the prospect of working more closely with teachers around this country, engaging teachers, not only in professional development, but in professional conversation. And this afternoon is a great way for us to begin this process. But we really want to hear from as many teachers over the next few years. We want to engage as many as possible because there's a richness in learning what people are doing around this country. Catholic schools have a long and rich history of academic excellence and faith formation across this country. But we all know that the educational landscape has become far more competitive, and we're competing more so than we ever have. And the reality is that old-fashioned, very traditional Catholic school doesn't necessarily resonate well with many prospective parents who, as we all know, are consumers. They are shopping, and they are looking for the best place for their child to thrive. And we want Catholic schools to be the very first choice when families are looking for a faith-based, academically excellent learning experience. So I'm very honored to be here this afternoon. I'm thrilled that Ken is moderating this and helped put this together. I have the utmost respect and admiration for Ken. I consider him a personal friend. And I can't thank all of you enough for being here this afternoon, and I look forward to the conversation.
Great, thank you, Patrick. So now I'm going to introduce the panel. I'll call your name, and if you would just share some of the a little bit about who you are, where you're at, and what you do, and why technology is important for Catholic, the mission of Catholic education. So we'll start with Barb.
All right, I'm Barb Gilman, Barb in Nebraska on Twitter. I am at St. Margaret Mary School in Omaha, Nebraska, and I teach third grade. And I think connecting with other teachers only makes our Catholic schools stronger.
Awesome. Okay, Kay.
I'm Kay, and I am tech resource at a Catholic school in Virginia, and I teach the younger grades. I help with tech resource in different ways through some PD, some, just good old-fashioned rebooting, and I also run our social media for our school. And I just believe that we have a responsibility to share the joy and the faith in as loud and proud and positive as we can. And I think it all starts sort of right here with all of you.
Thank you. Brian.
My name's Brian Payne. I'm a serial entrepreneur, a business builder, most recently a president of a Silicon Valley startup that we grew quite successfully. And I've been involved in 21st Century Learning through the Yearbook Startup Company, and that's how I met Ken. And I think the principles of 21st Century Learning are exactly what's required to keep people like myself and our businesses competitive moving forward. Is we need young people that are coming out that are ready for the business world.
Excellent, thank you. Marcy.
Hi, I'm Marcy Hebert. I'm at St. Joan of Arc School. We are right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana. I am the 4th through 8th grade computer teacher and the tech director for our school, so I kind of have my hands in a lot of things. I really think we have an obligation as we raise students in the faith to help them see how all this technology fits into their world and their faith and the life that we're trying to help them lead as they grow up.
Awesome. Abby.
Hi. Every time you say good morning, Ken, I'm going to say good afternoon.
Yeah.
My name is Abby Greer. I am the principal at the Academy of St. Matthias the Apostle in the Archdiocese of Washington. We are just outside Washington, D.C. in Maryland. And 21st Century Learning is so important to me as the instructional leader in the building because it's a wonderful avenue for organic differentiation in instruction. It happens much more naturally when technology is used. Also, whether it's as a school social media or our teachers, it's a really powerful example of modeling that we get to do every day. We don't want technology to be scary or something that our families are afraid of. We want it to be something they know, just like everything else, where their boundaries are.
Great. And Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Whalen. I teach at St. Peter's School in Fulton, Missouri. And I teach 3rd through 8th grade reading and science. And I think 21st Century Learning is important because it allows the students to be engaged and take ownership of their learning process.
Thank you. Well, as we were planning this, we were sort of figuring out, you know, what is this going to look like? And Kay and Barb and I were chatting the other evening, and we said it's going to be organic. We don't really know how this is going to evolve or shape, because this is what happens when we use social media. When people connect and form their professional learning networks online, it's a very organic experience. Everyone here this morning and those viewing, we're all leaning into a conversation because we all want to be here. And we have something we can offer each other. So this is kind of like Twitter with video and audio, and it's going to move. Barb is going to start with a series of questions, and we're going to have 15 minutes. Okay? We can jump in, but be aware that this medium, we have to allow, we don't want to talk over people if someone is sort of driving the conversation. But we'll let the conversation go where it needs to go as long as we stay focused on 21st century learning and the mission of Catholic education. Okay? So Barb, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ken. My first question, and this might be difficult because usually on Catholic Ed Chat we type our answers, so this will be, you can talk more than 140 characters. My first question, how does fostering connected education and connected educators benefit Catholic schools? So how does fostering it benefit our schools?
We aren't hiding our light under a bushel. We are showing what we're doing. We are sharing ideas that sometimes we might not have heard before. We have resources in a way we never did, because if you don't know how to do something, somebody out there in the Catholic Ed community does.
And I think we are better together than we are alone, which is, you know, sort of a simple thing for me, but I really embrace that thought that someone has probably done whatever that issue is, that lesson, that task, and they're out there willing to share with you lessons learned and how they could have done it better, faster, cheaper. So why not embrace and connect and use those resources particularly since so many of them are free. This that we're doing today is free. So, you know, it only uses your time and an investment of energy.
What I have found is that connected educators share the same desire to connect. People who don't want to be connected are not going to be part of this experience. So when you connect with another educator, it's because they want to be connected as well. And that energy, that shared desire to make that connection is why the results, I believe, are exponential. We get much more from connected, our colleagues who are connected to us than we get alone.
Yeah.
When you talk about
Besides all of the ideas there, it's also a matter of enthusiasm and being able to renew your thirst for Catholic education.
Yes.
when you talk about 21st century learning, you're talking about an ongoing journey, and the journey is more exciting and more fruitful if you're on it with other people. We talk about, I have my little Catholic Schools Week button here, we talk about communities. Communities is what we are, and it's expanding our community. It's especially significant for my school because we're a single track school. So the capacity for my 4th grade teacher to have another 4th grade teacher, for my technology teacher to have another technology teacher, is something that's really powerful.
Abby, we like your button.
Yes.
Thank you. I got one too.
I was just taking some notes, and what I'm hearing too, besides a great Bible quote, thank you, Bible verse, thank you, Marcy, but enthusiasm, energy, it just makes us stronger and just makes us better. And Abby, that is such a true statement. When I taught at a small school, I felt so alone, and I just had magazines to go to the teacher mailbox. So way back when, we didn't have this, and this is just an awesome tool.
Well, and I think that years ago we were very territorial in our thoughts, and I still think that can be prevalent. You know, it's still out there, but somewhere along the lines, at least I've seen, there isn't as much of that territorial ownership. This is my lesson and my lesson alone. But when you break through that feeling of vulnerability and share your lesson, and someone takes it and remixes it, and now it's a better lesson, it's such a rewarding experience, but it is scary to just sort of put yourself out there that way. But it's so worthwhile at the other end of it.
Well, and with computers today now having open source, we're following that same path.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Brian, I'd be interested, you know, networking, connecting in your world in a way. I'm sure there's a value. How do you see the relationship in regards to what it means to be connected in your world?
I kind of see it very similar to what's been discussed. What I found is I could tell you what my world looked like 10 years ago and then tell you what it looks like today. 10 years ago, I was on my own trying to figure everything out and picking up books, magazines, you name it, maybe going to some conferences. Nowadays, everything is moving so quickly that it's all about mentorship, finding resources. An example is I was, you know, there's an area that I wanted to explore in terms of the sales area, and I talked to someone I knew who put me on to another person who had the answer for me. So a lot of it now is just total collaboration, that I don't even look to anything other than to find somebody who's an expert in the space and then have the dialogue and pick their brain.
Well, we're going to move on to question number 2. How does being a connected educator affect student learning? And I bet you guys have awesome examples of how it affects your students in their learning.
Nobody wants to talk over each other, so we're all being very polite. You can see people are just ready to jump in there.
There's not a single way it doesn't impact student learning if connectedness is done correctly. Everything from exchanging lesson plans to discussions of best practices all the way to true connectedness with mystery Skypes and being able to have virtual pen pals and find out through videos what's going on around the world. It's opening up doors in minutes that used to take weeks to accomplish the same thing.
It also gives your kids an audience, an authentic audience. My kids get really excited when I tweet out the robot they're working on or the 3D print they created, and somebody likes it or somebody comments. And a lot of times even the companies will come back and say, hey, can you take a video of that, or can you put a picture on our site? And the kids know that people are watching what they're doing. It's not just, oh, my teacher gave me this assignment, let me just do enough so she'll leave me alone. They want it to be great because they know people are going to see what they're doing.
And just to piggyback on that, Marcy, I think that that's the key that has been so rewarding for me. When students, when you post their paper in the hallway, they take such pride in that. If you amplify that by allowing a student to write a blog post that the world can respond to in a safe and ethical way, and you're showing and displaying all of the guidelines along the way, it becomes so much more about their sense of ownership versus the grade. And in the end, that's truly what we're trying to teach them, is the learning behind the project, not just the A for the project. And so I think that that sense of ownership with that real audience is so key to the learning process in our schools.
See, and I think the real audience that we want to move, I mean, other than other students and other access to experts, but when I first met Brian and Peekaboo Yearbooks, what we did is we brought Brian to our kids, and then Brian was talking to our kids about what they're doing and how they were using this product. But more than that, he asked them, what could we do better? And at that moment, the kids started giving Brian suggestions. So he said, whoa. He took out his phone, he started videotaping their recommendations, and then he sent it to the engineers of Peekaboo who were developing the software behind it. And they actually incorporated some of the thoughts that our kids had. Now that was real authentic learning, and it was 21st century. But you have to be connected and partner sometimes outside of just the educational world that we're in, right? Because the authentic audience for our kids is not only other students or other schools. Brian, would you comment on that?
Yeah, I think what I found that was interesting, you know, I came in, how do we make a great product? You know, how do we help for the kids? And what I found was, by me even asking that question, what was not anticipated for me was, at first the kids were very reserved. They didn't want to tell the president of this company what was wrong or along that lines. And then once I got them to open up, they started sharing some really great stuff. And they got engaged in the process. And they became, within a short period of probably 60 to 90 seconds, they went from being shy to very engaged. And it was a very special moment for me. And in fact, when I sent that video off to the engineers, they watched it a couple of times, I was told, and they just loved it. They told me, Brian, from now on, just keep videotaping these kids and send this stuff back, because they needed that feedback as well. And it wasn't viewed as, well, they're younger and they don't know as much and we're older. It was just viewed as a collaboration.
Thank you.
Erin, did you have something to add?
No, I think just that it all ties together, that the connected educator affects student learning because they're learning ownership and digital citizenship, and you can put your faith into that. It's a great way to pull all of things together.
That's true. That's true. As a reading teacher, one of the newer skills where the kids are making a link between their text to themselves, and now they do the text to the world, and opening up the world to them, it really helps them see that. So I really enjoy being a connected educator. It's so fun. It's fun.
I was actually going to share, Barb, a year or two ago we did I don't think it was a mystery Skype, but I know it was like a Skype project with your class and my third grade teacher. And I remember you telling me the next day that one of your students, who never really speaks, asked a question, and how moving that was for you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, we were reading a story. It was a national read a story out loud, and we took turns reading the page. And I was just so proud of her, and she got right up there and read right in front of the camera, and yeah, it's moving to see that. Yeah. Our next question: how does a willing educator become more connected? Where do they start? We have lots of good places to go. Who would like to start?
Can I put Pat on the spot here?
Oh, yes.
Because I see the NCA as kind of being this curator, right? This hub of connectivity for those of us in Catholic education. How do you see that, Patrick?
Well, I think, as we envision in connecting educators, first of all, I think it has to happen locally. And unfortunately, we still see in schools and in dioceses teachers that are still working in isolation. I have the privilege of visiting schools. I worked in the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and I could not say that I consistently saw 21st century learning. I saw a lot of direct instruction. I saw a lot of traditional methods, and I think we have to engage people in meaningful professional conversations at the local level, and I think NCA can help drive this conversation, because we should be a leader in the most effective means of connecting educators, the best instructional practices, etc. But I think we can do it on a local level, but I think we also have to look at how can we utilize a platform like this. That can we begin to develop communities of educators who have shared responsibilities, shared interests across the country? Because what is playing in Atlanta, Georgia, might benefit somebody in New Orleans, Louisiana, but they don't know each other. But this forum can provide exactly that. So at NCA, what we're looking to do is really to create a regional build-out, whereby we create, we'll call them professional learning communities that, they may start at a conference or a meeting at the local level, but then they expand online, and they happen throughout the year. So it's not a one-and-done professional learning opportunity, but it's a year-long ongoing process.
Great. What's going on right now with this Google Hangout has been going on for how long with you, Barb?
Well, in November of 2012, we started the Twitter chat, Catholic Ed Chat.
Yeah.
And then in July 2013, we started the monthly Google Hangout. And that's how I met all you guys online.
And I see the NCA as now being a major amplifier of all of this. The Catholic Ed Chat that meets every Saturday, the Hangout that meets once a month, and now with the NCA as being the big amplifier, we can spread this message to teachers all over. The NCA Twitter wall was awesome.
I agree.
It was a revelation of how many people are actually using social media.
I know.
Capture them, and imagine what Saturday morning would be like. So anyway, I'll be quiet. So.
No, I was thrilled how many schools are on Twitter and Facebook. That's awesome. They need to join together. Yes, we'll be better and stronger.
Well, and if I can just interject, I think one of the thoughts at NCA is that I think historically there's been this thought that NCEA is filled with experts, and I think as we envision our new reality as a professional membership association, it's about being the convener, the broker, and the facilitator. That there is expertise around this country that is completely untapped, and via technology and by going to people rather than expecting everybody to travel halfway across the country to meet once a year, we can have an impact on improving the academic experience and the faith formation experience of students in our Catholic schools.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
And then I think Kay needs to move to her questions.
Okay.
All right.
As we talk about some of these issues, I think it's interesting how our classroom spaces haven't necessarily changed. So my question is, how has that classroom design setup changed much with the integration of more technology in education in general? And for those of you that have added it to your school in full force over the last few years, what has changed? And even in the business office, I'd be curious to hear, thinking over the last few years, how things have changed from one forum to the next.
I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'll start because when I saw that question, it kind of tickled me because we've been for the last 3 years in the process of redesigning and reimagining our classroom space. And this summer, it's going to happen. I mean, it's happening. Last year was the windows and the lighting, and next year it's actually going to be the room. The first thing that's going is the coat room. We're taking down that wall and we're getting rid of that 1937 coat room. But how we did this was
California problems, though. I don't know if we on the East Coast could get rid of those coat rooms.
how we did this, though, was a process of bringing in designers who understand 21st century environment, right? We brought in teachers, so all the teachers were part of the dialogue. We looked at the data and the research around what impacts learning in the classroom. We brought in furniture people. This has been a year-long conversation and designing process so that we can actually now, this summer, create that. So the only way we're going to redesign our 21st century learning space is if you bring the experts in, have the conversation with the staff and the parents, because it has to be organic as well. You can't impose a 20th century model of instruction in a 21st century environment, and vice versa. I'll shut up now.
Okay. Well, I'll jump in really quick. You don't see rows in my classroom, and we work in groups, and we also leave enough space so the kids, when they're on their iPads, if they need to come up and go talk with another student, it makes it easy for that. So that's a really simple change. No more rows.
I was always in trouble with the janitors because my desks were always all over the place, and it was very difficult to clean my room. When I moved to the computer lab, right now we have very fixed tables and desktops, and those are getting towards end of life. So I've already started the discussions with my new principal about what I'd like. Of course, you know, sometimes budget and what you'd like meet reality, but the hope is that down the road, this space that I use will be more collaborative, because right now we're doing collaborative projects around tables and desktop computers. So I have a dream, I just need a budget.
And you mentioned budget. There's budget constraints, everyone, no matter how much wonderful funds you have. I'm at a school that we definitely have budget constraints, and I think we've all hit around it, but a really key point is that wonderful instruction happens with limited technology, and terrible instruction can still happen with a lot of technology. So what's really pivotal is that professional development piece where teachers are given what they're needed to be successful with the tools they have, the same way we want students to be successful with the tools they have. And that's where it falls on the shoulders of people like me in leadership, where we have to make sure that we're not just handing our teachers an iPad and walking away, that we're talking about what great instruction looks like and talking about differentiation and giving them the tools and the time to make sure that they're going to use it correctly.
Can I ask Brian, what does the 21st century workspace look like that we're preparing our kids for?
I was listening to this and I was thinking, boy, the challenge is to be, you know, in the education system. What I could say is it's very different than what you would probably think. It's no longer just the idea of this open space and people, you know, no walls, no offices. It's actually gotten to a point where it's completely decentralized. So, for example, the last business I launched, we went from 2 people to 150 people, and in head office, I think we may have had a dozen people. And everyone was working from their homes.
Yes.
We were using Skype, not even Skype video, because then people would have to have showers. So it's just you know, Skype voice, and we were completely connected. And as a matter of fact, this is quite interesting. There was, even myself, I spent most of my time working from home office or on the road. I would always joke that wherever my cell phone is and my laptop, that's head office. And when I would go into the office, I found it often to be distracting. You know, people are coming up to you, and not that you don't like the social aspect of it, but it was just where I see the future, or not even the future, where I see corporate right now is there is no walls in terms of having an office or a space. It's a matter of creating a lifestyle where, you know, you work from home, you could pick your kids up at a certain time, you know, you have the flexibility, you're engaged in a collaborative way with all the technology, whether it's email or video or voice. And I found in the last 4 or 5 years, and if you would have asked me this question, could I see it have been possible 5 years ago, I would have said no. I don't truthfully think I could build another business with a traditional corporate head office, no matter how big the space looked or how cool it looked or how many foosball tables we had. I really think it's the office of corporate now is the office of lifestyle. You know, how do you want your lifestyle? And it's not for all people, but that's how I see business evolving.
I think it's very interesting because even someone will send me like a document that they've created on Publisher, and you know, I live and breathe on my phone for the majority of the day. That is my working tool piece, and I will say, can you PDF this, or you know, can you wait till tonight and I can get onto like a desktop computer to take a look at this? But even those sort of slight changes are very interesting, and I think even classroom design, being able to see all of the computers and putting desks into a U shape. I saw a video once where a student, not a student, but a teacher told all of the students in the room to shark their computers, and it was, you know, to U them, and that was how she got them to look at her, and I just loved the term, and giving those kinds of tools and ideas to those teachers who are getting laptops and devices in 28 kids' hands, you know, that's intimidating, that kind of classroom management piece. And like Abby, I believe what you said, giving them those professional development tips and ideas and help is so instrumental in just classroom design. So how about we move on to our next question, and I wanted to give everyone an opportunity to just talk about trends in education, and maybe to pick one of their favorites and just to share it and tell us why. So maybe Abby, I'll go down the line here.
Great. I'm really a big fan of Makerspace, and we're on a very basic level with it right now. I'm talking to my teachers about it. But what I like about that idea is that we don't have power tools in our school yet, but we can start to talk about this innovative design right on that surface level of, okay, you're reading a book and you're having a tough time visualizing the layout of it. Go back to that corner of the room, pull out some construction paper, pull out some supplies. In that area is where innovation starts happening, and you're addressing natural questions in a really hands-on way. I'm also someone who doesn't sit still well and likes doing things that are very hands-on, so I think some of my preference has to do with the way I wish I had done more learning.
Barb?
Oh, okay. I think it is really exciting to see makerspaces. Just today in the Omaha World Herald, they featured a school in our diocese who is doing an after-school club, and she just reached out to parents and asked them to bring things in, and they got woodworking tools, they got a sewing machine, a woman who has a lifelong crafter donated things, and then she has a wish list, and the creativity that these kids have is just awesome, and I think that's great. I would love to see more of that. Another thing that I like is the coding. Being able to code, it's you just take one person who knows how to do it, or even if they don't know how to do it, go to code.org. That's another great new tool that is being involved.
And Brian, any I know you're not in education per se, but any interesting trends that you see developing that you'd like to share with us?
On education that I see, or
whatever you'd like to share. I mean, I think that
yeah,
all ties.
A comment that this is tongue in cheek, but I think they should lower the child work laws. Because you know, they were great laws to have when it was manual labor. Now I'd love to have a 12-year-old do some programming for me, and so if it's not against the law, I would definitely like to hire them. I think that the big thing that can't be overstated is, from my situation, looking from my view, and it's only from my perspective, is that what I really like is the way that you guys as innovators are looking at how do we change the environment, how do we structure it, etc., which I think is really terrific, and it's the steps that need to happen. I think the real thing that's going to happen next after that is it's that collaboration. And it's not necessarily being in the classroom. You know, you see it now. Kids are on Facebook or Snapchat or emails, and they're collaborating with all their friends, and they're not even in that environment. And I don't think we can discount the environment that you don't necessarily have to be physically in a location to get benefit or to learn. And in fact, I have people that have been on my staff, one person or a few people, I have never, for 3 years they've worked with me remotely from Miami, Pittsburgh. I've never met them face to face, and I deal with them every day on the phone, and if I walk by them in a mall, I wouldn't know it was them. Mm-hmm. So, you know, so that's the trends I see, is that you can't discount this technology. Just because it's technology and we're not side by side and we can't touch each other, it doesn't mean that we're really not touching each other deep down, you know.
Mm-hmm. Erin?
Well, one thing I'm in a very small school. We only have 74 students from our preschool through 8th grade. So every 2 grade levels are combined. But we were able to go one-to-one with Chromebooks this year for 3rd through 8th grade. And we use Google Apps for Education, of course. You kind of need that for Chromebooks. But it was the smoothest technology transition I have ever been part of. The kids just, you open it up and you go, and they are doing so many things electronically, a lot less paper, and they love it, the parents love it, and I, of course, love it. It's been great.
Ken?
I have April here. April is our iOS director and manages the iPads and does professional development. And so I've asked her to respond to this question because she sort of sees it from the whole school perspective.
Sure.
How would you respond?
Well, I would say a lot of the Google Classroom stuff is really great. It's still got some kinks, and so that's where I work with the teachers on how do we show the students what's the difference of converting Word, and why does Google make me use Google Docs, and those kind of connections, because sometimes the new, like Google Classroom just recently came out with an app, and before it was on Safari if you had an iPad. So like all the little things that are eventually like showing them that things are going to change and get better. So kind of working through those things with the teachers and the students. Some other things that I found that were really cool was digital art. And so we've been working with the 7th and 1st grade and doing stuff in Adobe Photoshop, if you've ever used that, or Illustrator, is huge and so much and overwhelming. But on a smaller scale, with the iPads, they have different sections. You've got 3D art, you've got the Sketchbook Pro, and so the 7th graders were able to do an Andy Warhol kind of mock-up with Sketchbook Pro and just learning how layers work, and you know, they came up with really creative things and stuff like that. So kind of, I guess, you know, changing the way we see and how to utilize what we already have, you know, at our fingertips.
Very cool. Marcy?
I'm on board with the rest of you with Google. We've been making that transition, and it's been a really wonderful thing for our kids in our school. My current baby is 3D printing. We just got our 3D printer. This is our first year with it, and we are having a blast. I'll never tell you it's a perfect science. We still learn every day. The kids were unhappy because our extruders, both of our extruders are actually jammed today, so we're down today. They get so excited, and it's so much fun for me to watch them go And I've got one 8th grader, it took her 3 iterations to get it just like she wanted it. And she didn't complain. So often when we give assignments and kids have to keep working at it, it's like, oh no, I have to do this again. They're fighting to come do their work. When they know theirs is on the printer, they keep passing by my lab. Miss Aber, can I peek at it? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? And so it's amazing to see this excitement and this fire. And some of the kids are coming up with really cool things to solve simple problems in their life. And so right now we're kind of running a makerspace little bit in our room, doing a couple of different stations that the kids are working through. So those are kind of my favorites right now.
You know, I want to say we've been partnering with a company called Piper, and they use Minecraft to do these electronics. So what I decided was I was going to buy 25 licenses for Minecraft and get our own server so we could do this in-house. And my tech person, Lisa, sort of does it with the kids on every grade. And our 5th graders decided they were going to create a Catholic community, a Catholic world in Minecraft. They built churches. They built a little, like, the inside of what a church would look. It's amazing. And then the bishop came yesterday, and the 5th grade boys, a group of boys, built him the SS Bishop Barber, because he's in the Navy. He's a Navy chaplain. And they were showing it to him on Minecraft, and he was literally blown away. So those are the things that are already being done by our kids outside of the building. So why don't we use them as teachable things inside the building and control that environment? And then Lisa is developing a language with them, so rather than it becomes a competitive or something where you hurt or harm the other people in your world, it actually becomes how do you help and build with them. It's very cool what she's doing.
I just wanted to throw out mine because I think that the ed camps, I think ed camps are just something that we should be embracing more and more in every different kind of way we possibly can. You know, from teacher to teacher ed camp to using them for PD and faculty meetings, and we are actually next month at my school embracing and doing a parent ed camp. We have predetermined the sessions, but we're going to have sort of a short PTG meeting where they get to come in and pick their sessions and come in and learn. So I think the choice of learning model can just be across so many different kinds of methods, from teacher to teacher to teacher to student to, you know, school to parent. And so that is something I'm really excited about. And Pat, did you have, I know I'm going a little over and I'll try to wrap up soon, but Pat, did you have a trend or an idea or something that you would like to share?
I'm going to leave it to what all of you said. You guys are in the field and you know what you need and you've experienced these things. I will support what you just said, Kay, that, you know, I think the ed camp model is something that is very unfamiliar to many of our teachers. Mm-hmm. And we have done a few iterations of ed camps at some of our NCA meetings, and the reality is we've had good response, we've had good participation, but it's an unknown territory.
It is.
And I think part of this whole process of really focusing on 21st century learning and connecting educators is we've got to find ways to get people outside their comfort zone.
Yes.
And people are very used to, and I'll use this example, just like when many of us were kids and it was all direct instruction, many teachers are used to sitting in an audience and listening to a talking head for a couple hours and then they go back. And they have to be trained to interact. And the reality is many of them have so many gifts and talents and knowledge and skills that others could learn from, but they've never been given the forum to do that. So we have to really, I think, we have to push the envelope, and we have to get people to act and think in different ways than they historically have. And this is a really monumental thing for Catholic school educators in particular, because I will just say my experience in almost 25 years in Catholic education is that we have some people that are rather traditional and have a hard time with change. But if we're going to prepare a new generation of Catholic school teachers and leaders that are going to effectively impact the lives of young children today, we've got to do things differently. We've got to operate differently.
Wonderful.
If you don't mind, I know, thank you, Patrick. If you don't mind, I'm going to, because time was actually...
Yes, and I apologize. I'm not good at keeping people short.
No. And time is something all of us battle with. You know, whether we're a classroom teacher or an administrator, time is always sort of that knocking at the door. So it's not really a question, it's more like I want you guys to talk to me about something, because you all are at a different, your roles are all very different. So talk about leadership at a local or diocesan level and its impact on 21st century learning, okay? Talk about it. What have been the challenges? What have been some of the benefits? But how does leadership impact 21st century learning from your perspective? And I'm going to go down the list, okay? So I'm going to start with Abby.
Okay. Well, I'm really fortunate right now that I have an interim superintendent I'm working with who, the same way I feel I have teachers in the building, we're all lifelong learners. We're all really trying to grasp what's next together. So I'm lucky to be in a really good place right now that I have leadership above me that really supports me at the Catholic Schools office.
Great. Barb?
Well, we have a new superintendent, and I have approached the idea of doing a Catholic Ed camp, and I'm flying out to San Francisco next month, so I can the Catholic Ed camp. I am an Ed camp groupie. I think I've been to 14 Ed camps. And I love them, and I would love to bring that model to our archdiocese. And I have some friends that want to work with me, so that's my role right now, is trying to bring that to our diocese.
So Brian, what role do you think leadership has in impacting 21st century learning?
Do no harm. And I say that jokingly, but I mean it. Is one of the things is all these kids have incredible skills and incredible creativity, and you know, years and years past, when you're in the classroom, at least from when I was in Catholic schools, which I attended my whole life, you know, you sat in your desk and, you know, they were bombarded stuff and you memorized stuff and and then when you got into the workforce, you know, you had to work your way up and do these really crummy jobs and things like that. And, you know, that's the way it was. And the way I look at it now is, when you were talking about that 3D printer, I was visualizing, you know, these kids and just thinking how engaged they must be. They probably didn't even know they were in a classroom. That, you know, they're building this and building, you know, it's like the little kids playing Lego, you know, they just get into their world, and how wonderful is that? The one thing I will share, just even from a business side, is a lot of my colleagues and contemporaries don't like millennials, right? They'll say, oh, they're lazy, or they don't put in the time, or whatever. And I've actually come to realize that millennials are just the most awesome people. I love working with them. Part of the reason they're a bit of a challenge is they don't want to wait for something. They want to be challenged all the time. They want to be, you know, feeling like they're making a difference. And I think that's what's great about the business world, is they're leaving if we're not providing that. And I think in the education world, if we could keep them as creative as possible so that they can get out with, you know, without too many scars and wounds and Band-Aids, I think that would be like just an awesome environment to teach in, or to be taught within. Like I personally would have enjoyed an environment like that. Last comment is, I find it difficult to spend an hour at any session right now, someone up front talking to me. I much more enjoy this back and forth. It's engaging, you know. So yeah, do no harm.
Erin.
I would agree with the do no harm. I think leadership needs to provide resources and support, and obviously with technology, budget is a major factor, so the leadership needs to be helping with that and finding the funds and the grants and all of those resources. But then they need to let the teachers teach. They need to be doing PD that is teacher-driven, where there's a lot of choice, a lot of ownership among the teachers, so that they're getting what they need. The Ed Camp model, again, is a great one. I'm trying to get one of those started in my diocese, which is Jefferson City, so just provide the resources and support, and then lets teachers run with it.
Awesome. How about you, Kay?
I have become quite the podcast listener when I'm working out, and I wish I could find it. I will tweet it out. But I recently was listening to a podcast about a fear of failure, and there was a bit of a highlight about a company that did an annual biggest, most innovative mistake award once a year. And it really just spoke to me because it wasn't failure, which some people tend to have some weird feelings over the word failure, but they were using the word mistake actively. And they did this in a way to sort of really create a feeling of innovativeness without, risk of direct consequence. And I think that Brian really hit it when you said do no harm, that if you are embraced for being creative and innovative and celebrated in that way, it can really bring in some new creativity for not only teachers but students. So I don't really know the exact answer to that question, Ken, but that's the thing I'm sharing, that I think when you're given permission to be wildly creative and innovative, you become wildly creative and innovative. So that, I think, needs to be embraced.
How about you, Marcy?
First, Barb and I were talking in the back channel about first attempt in learning. Change, fail from a negative to a positive. My kids I taught them that as we set up this makerspace situation, that you may not get it right first. It's okay. That's not, keep working at it, because there's a lot to be learned from that. I also think reaching out to those around you. We have a lot of local control in our archdiocese, and a lot of the people who do similar jobs to me often felt very disconnected. We didn't know what was going on in the other schools. So what we decided was we set up our own meeting, and so about 3 times, maybe 4 times a school year, we send out an email and we pick somebody's school and we gather and we throw out topics. And what came out of our last one is that we are going to be inviting some of the high schools, somebody from the high schools that we feed to come to us and tell us, what is it you're looking for our kids to be able to do when we send them to you? Because that dialogue is missing. And it's been an exciting conversation to realize that we have all these resources right here, and sometimes we overlook it. And so sometimes it's just stepping forward and getting people together and getting those conversations going.
Excellent. When I attended this Bright Bites Summit, educational summit in San Francisco, and most of the people that spoke to us were educational experts, but we also had startup founders of startup companies, ed tech companies. And the word that they never used the word fail. They used the word pivot. It didn't work. Okay, well, let's just pivot over here. Okay, well, that's it. So all these successful entrepreneurs, you know how many failures they've had? But they don't use the word failure. They use the word pivot. So imagine if we just, okay, that didn't work. Well, let's pivot to something else. Let's pivot to something else. And you build into the student the opportunity, I can do this over differently and see what happens then. I think, Marcy, to your point, that's why the kids love doing it over, because they want to achieve the final goal. Leadership, as Brian said, can get in the way. Leadership has to inspire. Leadership has to provide the resources. But leadership has to listen to what people need. And what teacher in 3rd grade needs and the teacher in 8th grade are different. So I can't give them the same solution. I have to give them what they need. So they can own their own development, but it takes a conversation. And the other thing leadership has to do is provide a model of collaboration at every level. Everybody has to collaborate towards the solution and towards the decision. And I know the challenges is sometimes with the leadership above me. So what I'm trying to do is model at the Madeline an environment where everyone can own a piece of the solution. And when it comes to technology and innovation, it takes a lot of conversation to figure out, how we need to pivot so it works, kind of thing. Anyway, I'm interested in hearing Patrick's perspective, but I want to keep it a little short, because the final question I want to ask is, where do we go from here? How do we help connect our colleagues? What resources are available? And maybe, Patrick, you could reply about leadership and how the NCA might play a part in how we move forward with all this.
Sure. Well, I'm going to share a couple words as people were talking about leadership. You know, when we look at the nation, we have 175 dioceses, and when you've seen one diocese, you've seen one diocese. There are no two that are exactly alike, and the reality is that we have people that could fall into one of two camps. Either they're architects or they're firefighters. And the reality is when we look at 21st century leadership, we need architects. We don't need firefighters. And we need people who are builders, not maintainers. So as we look at the leadership landscape, whether it's a diocesan office or school-based, we need leadership that's shared, and it's shared widely. It's bold, it's courageous, it's innovative. And that all of those things allow for teachers ultimately to be empowered. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to empower teachers with their learning and with their professional development and with their connection with one another. And as we look at the role that NCEA has in this, you know, I think we are looking at how can we effectively convene people across this country to have these type of conversations, to share this type of information. So whether it's a Google Hangout, it's a discussion board that is, you know, that's on the NCEA website, whether it is videos, whether it's webinars, we have to come up with a multitude of platforms that allow for teachers to learn from and connect with one another. I hope that was brief enough, Ken.
It was great. So, panel, we have the Vice President of the NCEA with us, okay? So, if you could make a recommendation or make a request, how would you or your colleagues at large benefit? What could the NCEA do for us, do for educators, that maybe they're already doing that they should continue to do, or something that they should try that would benefit all of us out in the field? And maybe, I know I didn't give you time to really prep an answer for that, so take a moment, because I think you guys know something that the NCEA might be able to do to really support us and our teachers. So I'm going to start with Abby.
You know I like to think on my feet. Well, something when I'm thinking of the needs of my teachers, similar to a teacher in the classroom looking at their students, something that I know has helped me tie my teachers in are the numerous ways they can interact with NCEA. Some of my teachers just use Facebook, some of them are on Twitter, some are great with signing up for webinars, some just really want to hold a magazine in their hands. So I think the number of different ways, and maybe in expanding those ways that the same information can be sent out, will help my teachers in the building get a better feel for what's going on in the landscape around them.
Perfect. Yeah. 30 seconds, Barb.
I love when anybody from NCEA joins Catholic Ed Chat and promotes Catholic Ed Chat. It really helps, really makes a stronger Twitter.
So Brian, as a CEO executive, looking at the organization,
this was an easy one for me, Ken. I almost jumped in right off the bat.
Go for it.
What they have to do is create the vision. What does it look like? And then they need to create the culture and recognize people. So if this is what the future 21st century Catholic schools look like, paint that picture. Someone needs to see it. They don't need to get into the weeds. Just what's the big picture, and then when people do it, promote it. Recognize people. It could be on social media, just, hey, look what this 5th grade class did, look what this teacher did, and just like be an evangelist.
Loud and proud.
Loud and proud.
Erin.
All right, I would say whatever you can do to help get the pastors on board with supporting the principals for innovation and change. Sometimes the principals are all gung-ho, but they have to have the support of the pastors. So anything we can do to make that happen, we need to do.
Great. Kay?
I say embrace the hashtag. You know, and from Google Plus to Twitter to Facebook to whatever it is, use that one Catholic Ed Chat, hopefully, hashtag that's been built, and just share it, share it, share it, share it, share it. Same message, different mediums, whatever it is.
Great. Marcy?
I'm really intrigued, Pat, by what you talked about with getting regional groups together. Those of us who are going to use the social media ways are often doing that, or will hook into somebody who can hook us in that way. but getting people who aren't as comfortable with those ways, a way to communicate with those in their area would be amazing.
Perfect. April, we'll put you on the spot.
I would say, yeah, kind of following what she says, is those who, there's so many, just like our students, there's so many different ways people become engaged or are able to learn or, you know, want to integrate technology. So just having, some people benefit more one-on-one, some people they love to Twitter away, they like connecting via that word, and then just showing them, breaking down that fear and showing them that here's your resources. You have the traditional paper way, but you also have this as well, and just kind of incorporating that.
I would add that the NCEA, building on the EdCamp model, could become sort of a national sponsor of Catholic EdCamps across the country and just serve as a facilitator, not of the event, but just a sort of like, here's how you do it, and so the NCEA becomes the national sponsor of every Catholic EdCamp that takes place, and you just work with the local regions to make those happen. And the NCEA actually has a real connection with every member. And again, and then you're sort of with educators who all want to be there. They all want to be part of it. So that's a recommendation I would make.
And we should do one online with Google Hangouts, right, Ken?
So, Ryan, you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to add one more thing, very briefly, is I think that the NCEA, they have to become 21st century themselves. Mm-hmm. Okay? Here's an opportunity for them as an organization to become 21st century, which is very different than probably the way they're operating now or many other organizations. And it really does start at the top. Why not walk the talk as the organization at NCEA has changed? And really, it should be more like my business. That organization should look like what private business looks like, to a certain, as much as they can, and be very collaborative. And so my word is that to add to it is they should just walk the talk, and that'll filter down.
Well, and if I can just interject here, Ken, you know, we are making progress, and I am committed to seeing that progress is beyond people's expectations. The reality is NCEA has, you know, and I'm just laying on the line, NCEA has lost relevancy over the years. It has lost connectedness with people, and the reality is that there's no reason that has to continue. And that we are I think, walking the talk, and we are doing some things differently. It's very difficult to change the culture of an organization that's been around 110 years. And imagine being the chief operating officer and saying all the talent doesn't rest in Arlington, Virginia. The talent is all around the country, and our job is to harness all that talent, gather those people, have them share with one another for the benefit of all. So we are working on, you know, as people talked about different things. The interesting thing is a lot of these things are actually in the hopper right now. Whether it's, you know, envisioning how do we work more effectively with pastors, how do we embrace the hashtag, how do we engage in social media more. We've got a great marketing communications team that is really coming together, working collaboratively. So we ultimately, and I will say this, we want to be highly responsive to our members' needs. And I think as we look to the future and we bring in new staff and we create new models of interacting with our members, we are going to meet and exceed the expectations of our members.
I think this conversation, this Google Hangout alone, is such a great step in modeling. And I just will say I was so impressed with the social media campaign I saw happening this week and a week or two before through the NCEA. With the CSW 15 hashtag, the tweet wall, I really, really noticed it. As someone who runs our schools, so I'm quite often in there looking at the hashtags, I was really impressed with everything I saw happening.
Well, and I'll just say, Kay, that we, you know, when I came here a year and a half ago, we had one person in charge of communications, and they were a print-focused individual. We now have a team that's growing. Currently our team is at 5. We're going to have a team of 7, and we are going to have a much more active presence on all forms of social media. and we're going to be messaging, and we're going to be messaging in a variety of different forums to connect with as many different members, irregardless of their age or their experience and knowledge with technology.
Well, just like it happens on Saturday morning, when we do our Catholic Ed Chat on Twitter, nobody wants to stop, and we usually do it for an hour. But we do need to call it an end because other people have commitments. But I want to thank the panel for being here. I want to thank you for bringing your expertise, your passion, but really your ministry, your faith, right? Your dedication to Catholic education. You've made this conversation very meaningful, and I think you've also made the conversation so that it's going to be a catalyst for more conversations. And we'll bring in more of our colleagues, and maybe we'll have parallel hangouts happening simultaneously. I want to thank Patrick for being here representing the NCEA, and I wish all of you a happy ending to Catholic Schools Week. Thank you. God bless you. All right.
Thank you all.
Have a great weekend.
I'm going to stop the broadcast now.